Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to another 80s horror title. But first, at the time of this recording, I am really close to breaking that 700 sub mark, so consider subscribing. I really hoped to break 1,000 by now, but I need to make some changes since the algorithm or something really gave my channel a nosedive this past summer. Anyways, this movie is one which was new to me. It was another one that I'd seen the VHS cover or poster a lot over the years, but I finally got around to seeing it, which is for Death Ship from 1980, which stars George Kennedy, Richard Crenna, who were the only two I'd recognize. Well, actually, Saul Rubinek is in this as well. I knew Saul from pretty much everything. I mean, he was in Star Trek, True Romance, Warehouse 13, Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, lots of stuff over the years. Richard Crenna, I mainly only knew from the Rambo films, and George Kennedy, I only really knew from his segment in Creepshow 2, but especially from the Naked Gun films. So it took a bit for me to kind of get into him being this more gruff and stoic kind of character. And of course, he gets much, much darker, as a synopsis for this film is as follows. A mysterious ghost freighter rams and sinks a modern-day cruise ship whose survivors climb aboard the freighter and discover that it is a World War II Nazi torture vessel. Well, that kind of gives some stuff away, takes a bit of the mystery out of it, but even with that, I really got into this one. Now to set this up first, though, so I'd gotten home late, I started this up, got a short while into it, maybe just to the point where they get onto this freighter, and, I just had to call it a night. I was really drifting off, and I wanted to be able to pay attention. Not that the first portion was bad. On the contrary, we get a really great introduction to these characters, such as our captain, played by Kennedy, who's doing this last voyage before handing the ship over to Crenna. How he's just not good with people, very gruff and annoyed at everything, especially just for the fact that he has to kind of retire from captain of this ship. Now the ship, as the synopsis says, is rammed, and we get this really great crash scene, very action-packed, great effects and destruction. Is really exciting and everything. I was just really tired, as it was getting late for me, so I paused it, turned in for the night, and picked it up the next morning. Luckily, that break didn't really hurt my viewing much, because with renewed energy, it pulled me right back in. And even knowing the Nazi aspect going in, the torture, the slow unraveling still made the final discovery by our survivors. It really made it hit hard, because a lot of this is kind of like this slow, haunted boat feel in a way. Little reveals here and there, strange happenings, characters in peril are being taken out. But when we finally get to, like a torture room, even though they're just seeing like the aftermath, like the leftover belongings at first, such as gold teeth that have been yanked out, watches and other jewelry, which was, similar to what we've seen found at concentration camps, it hit pretty hard and was pretty scary. Just imagining being on a ship like that out in the ocean, where even if you escape custody somehow, where could you go? It would be terrifying to think of that, and they really brought that fright easily through imagining the scenario before ever seeing any carnage for the most part. Implication versus an in-your-face thrust of imagery. Now throughout this, our captain, again played by Kennedy, is starting to lose his mind, having almost drowned and having been rescued. He's being almost possessed by the spirits of this ship. Creepy voices kind of whispering to him in German. He goes a bit mad, is now wearing a German uniform and trying to run the ship as if he's the captain now, and his behavior is just getting worse and worse, more and more dangerous and threatening. Eventually, we do get a lot more horror in the form of some bodies being discovered in various states of decay, and some survivors being taken out, and even this strange shower of blood scene that was really gross. And the revelation that the ship has been circling the Atlantic and taking out other ships, bringing aboard survivors, and taking them out, kind of feeding this ship the blood and lives of everybody that it can find. It all works really well. Surprisingly well. Is when I paused it on that first night so I could hit the hay, I did a quick check on social media, and I saw a reply to my post about queuing it up, where somebody stated, "One of my childhood favorites for cowering behind the sofa." And at first I thought, really? It's not that bad. But that next morning when I kind of finished it up, I got it. Yeah, there's some scary stuff in this, and if I saw this back when I was a kid, I would have been cowering as well. Because they did a really good job of making this haunted house on the sea kind of film, in that it gives an even more desperate situation to trap our survivors in, since they're on the ocean. As I've said many times before, horror hits me hard if you can't find a way out of the situation, especially if you can't easily find a way out. And they really trapped us on this one. They cut off all escape routes, worked in a scarier aspect and a more helpless one involving Nazis and torture, which also grounds us in that Nazis actually did stuff like that for real. And it gave me this really creepy, but enjoyable in a horror movie kind of way, ghostly film, which is more than worth checking out. And speaking of checking out, thanks for checking out my quick little video here for Death Ship from 1980, which at the time of this video is on Amazon Prime and paid rental. I think maybe I was getting this film mixed up with Ghost Ship, figuring maybe Ghost Ship was a remake that I liked well enough or something. I don't know. I was renting a lot in the 80s, or my mommy was renting it for me, so it's surprising I never got around to seeing this one. Anyways, that's all I've got for this one. If you've seen it, what are your thoughts? Sound off in the comments, especially if you saw this one as a kid. What did you think of it? I look forward to seeing those comments, and be sure to do that whole like, share, subscribe thing that I mentioned at the beginning, and I will see you in the next one.